Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Businessology Show, where we learn all about the business of creativity, actually how to run businesses. And my friend from a long time ago, Ilise Benun, she's been doing this for 35 years, and she's going to join us on the show. And she works directly with solopreneurs, creative businesses, business owners, trying to help them be just better business owners, make more money, things like that. And so she teaches the skills of business, right? Because creative people don't necessarily learn those in school. None of us do. So we all have to learn that on our own or have somebody teach those things to us. So she's on a mission to help these entrepreneurs do this better at her site, marketing-mentor.com. So if you're visiting that dash matters, marketing-mentor.com. And she has a lot of courses and plans in there that we'll get her to talk about. But I'm just pumped to have Ilise on the show. So Ilise, welcome to the Businessology Show. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Jason. It's lovely to be here with you.
Well, so Ilise, if we went to your site and some other sites, you have a lot of courses in plans. So kind of what you have, the simplest marketing plan, the marketing mentor, podcast, the Creative Professional's Guide to Money. So what's your goal with all of those courses and things you're trying to teach?
Yeah, I mean, those are all just different media through which I teach creative professionals. Sometimes I say how to get better clients with bigger budgets.
Nice.
But really, it's about bringing your creativity to the business side of your business, because I find that creative professionals tend to compartmentalize and sometimes even imagine that the creative can't live in the same brain or the same body with the business. And so I disagree with that. And I think that we can be better business people as creatives, and that we have all the skills, maybe not the skills, but the talents and the intuition to be really good business people. And because business is all about relationships. So all of these things, the books, the speaking, the courses, the simplest marketing plan, it's all just my way of trying to communicate that and make it digestible, basically, in a way that people can take it in and learn it, baby step by baby step, basically.
I love that. Business is very creative, the business side of what we do, running a business, client relationships, how to price them. That's all very, very creative. And I guess you're saying most creative professionals think that's not creative, the business side? Is that what they generally believe?
Well, I think they associate it with numbers and, accounting. And they were told for some reason by someone that they're not good at math, and they believed it and never really pursued, what is it really to be in business, to run a business? And I, after 35 years, I'm kind of spoiled now by being self-employed and could never go back. I don't even know where I would go.
No.
And right? I mean, so yeah, I just think that we can find ways to think outside the box, if you want to use a cliche, and bring that to the business.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, what is, if you work with solo, entrepreneurs, solo creative owners, what are some of their root issues, the things holding them back from running their business well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the main problems is that people feel like they need this or that, whether it's a project or a client, and then there's a certain way you think you need to be in order to get that client or hold on to that client. And a lot of people basically get their work through word of mouth, as if that's a good thing. And I submit to you that word of mouth is simply taking what comes along, and that we can be in much more control over choosing, handpicking the clients that we work with, especially if you want better clients with bigger budgets. You probably have to figure out who they are and go get them, as opposed to waiting for them to show up at your door.
Okay. So that's the switch which is intentionally get the clients that would pay a bigger budget instead of sitting there waiting on the referral. And it's true, in services, we all get referrals, right? That is a common way. But are you asking them to be more intentional, to go after certain things, and then you teach them some path to go do that?
Right. That's what the simplest marketing plan is rooted in.
Okay.
Basically, it's the 3 tools, and I'm happy to tell you what they are.
Yeah, what are those?
I think there are too many marketing tools, and people get overwhelmed and paralyzed and then don't know what to do and don't do anything. Instead, my simplest marketing plan, which is kind of a framework that I've developed over these 35 years, and through trial and error, through doing it for myself and seeing what works, through helping other people do it for themselves and figure out, well, what's the best way for them to do this tool versus that tool. And so the 3 tools are, first one is what I call strategic networking, which is essentially figuring out who your people are and where they go, and then literally in real time, in person, if possible, going to meet with them and get to know them, because people work with people they know, like, and trust. True. And they turn to people, freelancers or friends, who they know, like, and trust in their moment of need. And the whole point of marketing is to be in their orbit, in their moment of need, so that they don't have to figure out where to go or who to find. You've already built trust with them through your marketing. And then it's just a question of timing when you make the actual connection.
Okay. Very cool. So help me. So as an accounting professional, we serve creative people and agencies. Kind of what would that look like for us? Like if you were to walk me through, here I'm getting free advice from the Ilise Benun, walking me through.
The marketing mentor.
Yeah, the marketing mentor. Kind of how would you walk me through that process for our firm?
Okay, and I'm sure you're kind of already doing these things and perhaps don't even know it or see how the dots connect.
Yeah.
Right? But for example, right, so the 3 tools, I gave you one, strategic networking. The second one is high quality content marketing.
Okay.
And the third one is what I call targeted outreach, which is introducing yourself to the people that you've handpicked and that you really want to work with, and letting them know why you chose them and how you think you could help them. And some of them will say, oh yeah, we were just thinking about that and wishing we could find someone who could help us with that. That's not the majority. That's going to be the minority. But the fact that you did your homework and reached out is one of the, as a human being, right, not as a bot, is one of the reasons they might say yes. So those are the 3 tools. So, for example, strategic networking. I mean, you and I originally met, I think, at an event for designers.
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
At the How Design Live conference,
over
perhaps
a decade ago, probably. I don't know.
A while back, right.
Yeah.
And so networking at a place where creative professionals or agency owners go, that's strategic networking.
Okay,
you figure it out who your people are and where they go, and you go meet them.
Okay. And a conference is a real basic example of that. That's a real easy way to do it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Now, again, if I remember correctly, you were speaking at that conference.
That's right. Yeah.
And that is content marketing. That's actually advanced content marketing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right? In the same way that a podcast or a show like this one, like the Businessology Show, is advanced content marketing. It's you creating content and putting it in front of your people, the people who need it, as an authority with the credibility that comes with an event or a show, right? And so putting it out there causes people who are in or near their moment of need to raise their hand and say, that thing you were talking about, that marketing thing you were talking about, I really need help with that. Or that accounting thing you were talking about, I really need help with that. I'm bad at math and I don't know. And I, put everything off until the end of the year. And I'm sure that's not the right thing to do. So can you help me?
Cool. Okay.
Right? Doesn't that happen when you speak, that people come up to you afterwards and say,
oh yeah,
you're exactly who we need.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. And so, so we've got those first 2, and then kind of what's that third one? which
So
I
the
think you
third
said
one,
was harder, right?
targeted outreach.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And that can be the more obvious version of that is reaching out to your ideal prospects.
Okay.
But you can also use it to reach out to collaborators or people who offer complementary services to yours or podcasts you want to be on to get in front of your people, right? Okay. Outreach can be used in many different ways. It's just you introducing yourself to someone who doesn't know you yet.
Okay. So this is part of your job as a creative business owner. It's not just to do the work of design. You run a business, and now there are other things you have to do. These three things. How much time really should they be spending on these three things? Is it weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually? How would you break down putting this on a calendar or something?
Well, my simplest marketing plan is rooted in based on the idea of 30 minutes a day, essentially.
Cool.
That once you've got your tools in place and you know who your people are, it shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes a day to do the research, do the outreach, figure out what's the next event you need to go to, or write a post on LinkedIn, or, make comments on a post that one of your prospects or clients made on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn actually is kind of an amazing platform where you can do all three of those tools simultaneously. So you don't really need much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you do? Yeah. LinkedIn is amazing, right? The conversations there are still pretty good conversations. Now we all get those connection requests, right? And then, we're connected and then we're sold to right after that. And it might be something that we would never want to purchase. Can we leverage LinkedIn in that, like that third step, which is, outreach? Can we outreach through LinkedIn and not be perceived as those, slick car salespeople?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I come from slime is what I've been saying lately because my father was a slimy salesman. And so I know what not to do.
Okay. There you go.
Yes. Okay. And I think that it's not which tools you use, it's how you use them. So reaching out to people on LinkedIn without doing your homework and sending a generic message that you send to 1,000 other people is slimy. Yeah. That doesn't work. But if you do it in a human way, if you do your homework, if you review their profile and find a connection, whether the connection is we both really love, obviously, Oreos, right? If there's some post or some comment they made about Oreos and you can say, oh, you love Oreos too? Like a little thing like that actually means a lot to people sometimes. And that's just, one example off the top of my head. But the idea is you find a connection and you use that connection in your outreach to say, I'm not saying this to everyone. Here's why I chose you, and here's how I think I can help you, and here's why I care about your business.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that this direct outreach to people, we can't just generically throw the same message at everybody. So it's going to take us a little bit more work to actually individualize our outreach to each person. We don't want to burden them with not even being valuable. We want to have some kind of personal connection. And so that takes a little bit more work to study the networking leads we're trying to get in touch with. We have to know them a little bit better. It's more intimate is what I think you're saying.
It's definitely more personal.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about LinkedIn is that, before LinkedIn, you couldn't have access to this information. You would have to guess, or you would have to, go to the library to figure some of this stuff out. But there's so much information available between what people share on their profile and what they say when they're engaging on the platform, that there's plenty for you to work with if you put your attention to it. But some people are like, oh, no, it's not going to work, or, oh, no, I don't feel like it, or it feels too slimy. Like there are just so many excuses that we can, use, and they usually work.
Yeah, right. to deter us from actually doing anything about it. But I like what
Exactly.
you're saying. Marketing and outreach, it does take time. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
commitment of our calendar to commit to. And what we've learned, we've been doing marketing a long time. There is, man, you have to be consistent with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just constantly putting out content consistently. So do you teach consistency? Is that part of what is required
Oh,
in what
yeah.
you're doing?
Absolutely. And not only do I teach consistency, because it's actually not something you can teach, in my opinion, but you can create the space for people to be consistent.
Okay.
And so in some of my programs, basically there's a little bit of teaching that I do, and then there are co-working sessions. And then I have something called the Outreach Club, where a group of people come together once or twice a week, and for an hour, they do outreach together. They mute themselves, they do their outreach, and then at the end, they come back and they say, well, here's what happened, or here's who I reached out to, or here's what someone responded. And so, because I feel like part of it, especially if you're the only one in your business, but even if you are an agency owner, you don't have someone to talk to about these things or to give you feedback like, is that a good idea? Should I really say that?
Yeah.
And so when you have a group of people to do it together, that accountability just kind of forces you to be consistent, essentially.
Okay. I love that. So that's the accountability you bring when they come and do their outreach in that moment during that week. I love that. Well, how do you, because I want to talk about money. Creative professionals
Let's talk about money.
don't like to talk about money. How do you get the bigger clients with the bigger budgets? Like, how do you do that? That's probably a long answer. I don't know.
Well, I feel like we've kind of already answered the question, but I'll come back to it. But first I want to ask you, Jason, do you like to talk about money?
I like it. So I'm unusual probably for most people. I want to lean into that as early as I can in that front, because it's a way we can position ourselves, and and if our prices are a little bit higher than somebody else, it's like we want to defend that, and we think we can. So I don't know. Maybe I'm unusual in that perspective.
I think you are unusual. Most people, including the clients, by the way, feel very awkward, if not afraid of talking about money. And actually, one of my clients recently said, I realized that even if money feels scary when I think about talking about it, the reality is it's actually just awkward. Yeah. And so I love this distinction between scary and awkward.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that applies to a lot of things, actually, that we imagine are scary, but if we just do it, it's just going to feel weird.
That's a good point. I think there are times we pitch a price, and we'll do that early on. It still feels awkward. And I may not call it scary, but I like what you're saying. Even in our minds, we can puff something up to be scary when it is just an awkward conversation to have, and the client is feeling that awkwardness too. That's a great point. Yeah.
But the other point about how do you get the clients with bigger budgets? First of all, you have to go find them, right? Choose which ones are going to have the bigger budget. You can't just expect them to find you. Or a lot of times I hear a creative professional saying, well, why won't they pay me what we deserve? And the trouble is not your pricing. The trouble is your prospecting, and it's your market. And you have to go find the people who can pay you what you think you deserve. And then have the money conversation. And I actually talk about it as leading the money conversation. So that means you have to be the one to, number one, just determine when is the right moment to bring up money, because it can't be too early in the conversation and it can't be too late in the conversation or the exchange. And what I teach is essentially that you have to demonstrate your value in a real-time conversation before you can talk about money.
Okay.
And then when you talk about money, the first thing you need to get from the prospect is not their budget. I've actually been telling people don't ask for their budget anymore, because they're either going to say, I don't know, or we can't tell you.
Right.
And instead, what you want to know is, how do they value this particular project? What's the number in their mind? Not what they're willing to spend, but what do they think it's worth? That's what you need to know. And if you can get that information from them, then you can decide, is this a good fit for me? Can they afford us in the first place? That's what you need to know, because often what happens is people just get a request for a proposal, or someone says, just send me a proposal. And then you haven't demonstrated any value and you have no idea what they think it's worth. And so you're just shooting in the dark, and it's a total waste of time.
Okay. Shooting in the dark is not a good way to prospect.
Not a good way.
And bring up money, right? That's just blind. And I like a lot of what you're teaching too. Is there is an intimate nature to getting to know somebody, getting to know their value, getting to know their project. And which you say that's the first thing, get to know more about them or the project and the value, and bring up money after you've done that initial work.
That's right. And I guess underlying or overarching what you're saying there also is the reality that no matter what you're selling, it's a relationship business.
Yeah.
We really are developing relationships with people and trying to establish trust and foster trust so that they trust us and want to know what we think and what they should do. And all of that has to come first. And that can happen in marketing, actually.
I love it. Okay. Yeah. You can engender trust through marketing, right? People can get a hold of that through some of the content you put out.
Well, and especially actually by being yourself. I think often people imagine they have to be something more professional or something more formal than what and who they actually are. And so one of the things I try to help people do is kind of bring more of themselves and their creativity, by the way, into the marketing of their business. And that's what sets you apart. It's not usually the services that you offer. It's how you think and how you work and your sense of humor and all of these things about process, like how responsive you are. I was thinking actually today about the fact that I like to be really responsive and I want others to be responsive also.
Right.
And that's one of the things that sets me apart. Like, you can reach me.
Yeah. Cool. And that's a guarantee you can make, right? At the even at the outset of a lead relationship, you can be like, I'm going to be pretty responsive. You'll probably be amazed. And that's kind of a comforting commitment you can make, because you know you can fulfill it too. That's not a blind promise. It's something I can control. Yeah, that's something you can control. Okay, I love that. So when you're coaching with these marketing, these creative professionals through growing their business, at what point do they need to hire? Or they start, adding people to their design companies, or how do you help them know when it's time to hire, and do they want to hire?
Right. Well, certainly not everybody, and a lot of the solopreneurs that I work with. It's interesting because this is an issue right now with a lot of my clients, because the secret about marketing, I like to say, is it works when you do it consistently. And so that means that the clients are going to come. And then you can stay very small and just raise your prices and have more prospects than you can handle. And then you got to get used to saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't work with you, or you're going to have to wait 6 months because we're totally booked right now. Right. But that's one option, is to have what one of my clients, Bob Bly, who is a very famous copywriter, calls the double pipeline, which is twice as many prospects as you can actually say yes to.
I love that. Yeah.
Right?
That would be nice for us all to have that.
It would be. It's possible. All you have to do is double the marketing.
Yeah. There you go. Right.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is all the things you've been telling us already, and how to do this outreach. So I love, I have this question. You can lead clients, or they can lead you. We love to lead our clients through a deeper relationship. Can creatives do this better? Like, sometimes clients tell them what to do, kind of order takers. But can these creative professionals be better about leading the client about, here's how I'm going to provide the value to you?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I would say, as with everything, you can't lead someone who doesn't want to be led.
True. Yeah.
And someone who thinks they know better than you or is just looking for a pair of hands, right? And there are all sorts of red flags you can watch for to determine early on in an exchange, in a relationship, before any money changes hands, truthfully, if someone is that way.
Yeah.
And so I think you need to be looking for that. But then if you can find, actually, one example that comes to mind is a client who says, we need this thing. It's not going to take you very long. It's not all that complicated.
Right.
And, it probably isn't going to cost much, right? Right. Like that kind of attitude, that's a red flag.
That's right. Yeah. And
but
clients do that. I guess they're trying to control the situation. They're like, this will be super easy for you. So I'm expecting you to charge me less.
Right. And I always want to say, how the heck do you know what my process is?
Yeah.
And maybe I like to think a long time to come up with that little one-liner or that, small paid ad, whatever it is. So just be careful of people like that. They will not be led in general.
Right. Right. And what is that root issue of kind of why the client wants to control that creative solopreneur? What are some of the root issues that create those red flags that the solopreneur has to watch out for?
I think it's a personality issue. It's a lack of trust in general in others, and the feeling that you've got to have your hand in everything, or you have to be the expert at everything, or at least feel like you are. But I think we're looking for people who want us to take it off their hands and trust the way we think and the way we approach things. And the way you find those people is you have to position yourself as that expert. And again, this is through content marketing and thought leadership and speaking and podcasting and all of these things, so that people come to you and say, we really like the way you think about that. How would you apply that to our situation? And then you're kind of set up to lead as opposed to trying to lead someone who doesn't want to be led.
Yeah. Well, what do you do if somebody... I love that. So you need to lead with being an expert, lead with being in control of the client relationship. How do these creative professionals do it if a client starts coming into that process more than they should? They start guiding and giving orders. How do you respond in the middle of those projects? What can a creative solopreneur do to kind of not put the client back in their place, but to remind them that they're leading, the client is? How do they do that?
So I think, first of all, we do have to push back, and timing is important here too. We can't let those moments drift by and just hope, all right, that's going to stop soon, or they're not going to do that next time. Really do have to speak up in the moment. And then I think, I like to say questions are the answer to everything. In other words, you're not going to say, you can't do this anymore. You can't talk to me like that, or you're not in charge here. We are, or anything like that. You're going to maybe ask, are you aware that when you give us this suggestion, that kind of overrides what we were brought in here to do? So do you want us to tell you what we think you should do? Do you want us to be the expert here? Or would you rather do it and we'll just do whatever you tell us to? Like, that's just an example of a way to use a question to open up the conversation about that.
I love that. And I think clients, I don't know, well, some good clients may not know they're doing that, right? And the questions can help them become aware. I think you hired me to lead you through this process. Are you asking me questions? Are you directing me now? So do you want me to change my process for you?
Right. Or have you changed your mind?
Yeah. Have you changed your mind? And like you said, you got to say it early when it starts happening, because in those relationships, you get into those habitual ways you start working, right? And if you let that client kind of take over control, they'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
Unless you approach it early.
And I think the other thing that's important there, like these habits that we get into, not only with certain clients, but just in general in the way that we work, email is one of them. And I really think that some conversations must be had in real time in order to do them well and do them diplomatically. But if you're in a mode of always emailing back and forth with a client, and it doesn't even occur to you that like maybe we should talk in real time about this thing that could become a problem if we don't nip it in the bud right now. And so just kind of being awake to what is the best medium for this conversation and this conversation and this conversation, as opposed to this is the way we do it.
That makes sense. Yeah, we teach our team a lot of times. Some conversations get so complicated over email, you have to move it to a live conversation. So there's a balance in that, and it sounds like that's what you're saying. To address some of those things is to pull it into a live Zoom meeting or a phone call, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Very cool. So we've seen. I'm curious, what have you seen post-pandemic? I think everybody's careers and they have all taken different, trajectories and things like that. Have solopreneurs struggled? Have you seen them wanting to just give up and go get a job? Like, what are they facing kind of as an industry? I'd love to hear what you think about that.
So, first of all, is a job easy to get?
Yeah, good question.
Why would we want a job when there's no limit to how much money you can earn when you're self-employed? I mean, that's just to me, yes, self-employment is not for everyone.
Right.
That's for sure. And some people just want to be told what to do and they want to close the door at 5:00 or whatever time it is and not think about it until tomorrow. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the fantasy of just going and getting a job is not all that realistic, especially if you are, in the sunset of your career, let's say, because the expectations are really high and the money isn't really all that good. And there's so much politics. And I just really think that when we are in more control of our life and our business, there's so much potential for freedom. And I'm at this point spoiled by that freedom and even have a chip on my shoulder about it. So I wouldn't go back. But I would say, the people I work with, I'm a little biased there too, because these are people who are marketing themselves. And yes, sometimes it takes a while to get traction, right? For all of the tools to be in place and working as a marketing machine. Yeah. And you have to be very patient. And so I teach patience back actually rather than frustration and how to reframe all of these ideas so that you don't allow yourself to, disintegrate into that that spiral, that downward spiral.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of people can become frustrated, with their careers.
And some are more easily frustrated than others.
Right. And so I like you're teaching patience, which is this does take time, especially some of the things you're saying, implementing marketing, content marketing. That takes time to practice consistency, to see it impact a market, for people start to know you. It's interesting. Well, so as we're wrapping up here, I'm curious, what are some of the best ways in which people can nurture their leads? Is that website? Is it a podcast? Is it an email list? Is it writing an ebook? Like, where kind of should they start, to be consistent with marketing and content?
Yeah, I think if you're only going to do one thing, it should be an email newsletter.
Okay.
And an email newsletter is a form of content marketing. Yeah. And it's not a blog. The difference between a newsletter and a blog is on your website and people have to find it. An email newsletter is something you send to the people that you want to stay in touch with. Yeah. And so, and it doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to be long. A lot of people, when I say newsletter, they think, 3 pages. No. I have people who are doing, 2 or 3 paragraphs just to stay top of mind, just to remind the world that they're there, because that's actually how you get people to say yes to being on your list. You say, I'm going to remove the burden of you having to remember I'm out here when you need me, because I'm going to stay in touch with tips. That's what I do with my quick tips from Marketing Mentor. Every 2 weeks, I send out something short-ish, and I just want you to know what I'm doing and what I'm thinking about and what my new tools are and what my new ideas are. And that is also what builds trust. Repeatedly, it's the repetition that builds trust. And I find that often people they start a newsletter and then they are not consistent with it, or they do one a year, and that's like not nearly enough. You have to be repetitive, basically.
Yeah. So what is the timing? You do yours every 2 weeks. Is that would you suggest that's the right timing for people on an email newsletter?
No, I'm a content machine. So and I've got tons of ideas. So that's just how I do it. But I would say monthly is the maximum and quarterly is the minimum.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you just can't help it. You have so much in your mind. You just have to get it out into the marketplace. That's good stuff.
Yes.
Cool. Well, at least these are just awesome ideas. It helps me even feel, accountable. I need to stay focused on these things and leverage what we have, right? We have a lot of great content out there. I need to go out and leverage it and keep reminding people that we're real people. What are some ways people can follow you online and find out about, some of these things that you do?
Absolutely. So the best way is to sign up for my quick tips from Marketing Mentor, which you can find at marketing-mentor.com. And I also have a podcast, the Marketing Mentor Podcast.
Nice.
And I've been doing that since 2008, I think. It's been a really long time.
Wow.
I have, what am I, like up to 486 episodes, I think was my last one.
That's crazy.
And then I have a YouTube channel, and there's just a ton of content out there because that's what happens when you're a content machine.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what I do for a living too. I love to produce content. It's fun, right? When you start writing, you learn so much about yourself. Writing has a lot to do with teaching yourself, more so even than producing the content. I learned so much when I'm writing. So,
and actually, I find that creating content builds confidence as well, because the things we know, we don't really know until we put them out there and share them. And then people say, I never thought about that before. So even if nobody reads what you write, I think it's important to write it.
Yeah. Well, and for people who write a lot like you, and I write a lot too, it is wild when you write something down that you didn't know you were going to write, and you're going, oh yeah, that makes way more sense than what I didn't even know I knew that.
Exactly.
It's wild. There's so much we don't even know we know until we write it down, and then it's clearer even to us.
Yep, that's true.
Which is crazy. Well, cool. Okay. Well, Ilise, we're going to have some people go to your website, and we'll put that in the show notes too, marketing-mentor.com. And thank you for being on the Businessology Show with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Take care.